Boom. Jamie, how are you, mate?
Yes, very well. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, absolutely my pleasure. So, friends, right from the start, I'm not going to say excuse me being all stitched up. That's a story for another day. Or my social media. Um, Jamie, wonderful gentleman. I saw some stuff that he put out on Twitter, and I knew immediately we had to talk about health. Remember, folks, I'm always saying the big club's biggest weapon is that people do not understand their own well-being, and therefore they are automatically in victim mode. And when you're in victim mode, you look to big corporations to come and they're going to fix you, they're going to help you because you've rendered yourself helpless. However, we cannot have that chat on this platform. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a chat all about, the global situation, or should I say the universal situation. And then we're going to do the well-being, quote unquote, chat over on our locals platform. So I'll put a link below. And this'll be free, folks. All you've got to do is sign up for my locals platform. It's completely free. Most of the videos I do there are free, but I do some unique coaching ones for the people that pay to support me. So ignore all the people in the comments that say this costs money. It's just that they can't work out the technology, which is like most of us. So, yes. So before we go to locals and have the chat of the century, Jamie, I'm so glad I found someone else that gets well-being,
Yeah,
because
that's it.
it's cost us like 3 years of our life, and it looks like that nonsense is coming back because people
Yeah.
just don't understand. So, yes, we were going to talk about Adidas, weren't we? Adidasler.
That's right. Just off camera, I get myself into all sorts of trouble with people kind of going, you do realize that it's massive symbolism of the of what's occurring. We were talking off camera just about the background a little bit. And it's kind of funny that we were saying just about how I kind of got here to France, the kind of lead up to everything like that. But I'll just kind of say, you know, my background in terms of kind of globalists or whatever is I went to boarding school. And funnily enough, I went to boarding school that was in the bowels of Canterbury Cathedral. And the Archbishop of Canterbury, there being a protector of, certain types of people, has just been found, So I come from, being involved, like growing up in that environment. So, maybe offer some kind of perspective as to, what these kind of, quote unquote elite types of people are doing.
So I just just in my stitches, I keep falling off. Yes, let's come on to that, Jamie, because that's fascinating. What I was going to point out is I love Adidas, right? And as I say to people, folks, it doesn't matter a shit what your symbolism is. If you're either in a death cult or you're bloody not. And clearly, Jamie and I, we're not members of the Illuminati, so we can wear what we want. Apparently, New York Yankees or whatever means something else. Um, you know, Symbols are what you make them, and in the case of the death cult, the cult of Saturn, the globalists, it's symbols for simpletons because they're a bunch of idiots. But what I love about Adidas is it was a Polish immigrant to New York, Adi Dassler,
Right.
that formed Adidas. His brother, in competition with him, formed Puma.
I had heard that, yeah.
And obviously Adidas is in the the club. In this case, he's playing his part in masonry because he put the 3 and the 3 on each arm or each side of his running shoe, as it originally was, or it was probably like a comfort shoe back then, or a social shoe. He put the 3 and the 3, as in the 33, the symbol of the, you know.
I just never aware of stuff like that. You know, it's always intensely interesting. I mean, you know, the other one about Adidas that I had her because I grew up listening to metal and everything. You know, Korn, because there's a song Adidas and it stands for All Day I Dream About Sex or whatever. And I think, you know, there's quite clearly some kind of symbolism going on there with the kind of metal thing and you know, Satanism and you're saying that it's the guy's name, but you know, who knows?
Yes, it's like I say, doesn't matter. I used to do that on my thumbnails when I was trying to hint to people this is a video about like that lot, and the number of people that like just don't get it. They're like, "Oh, I didn't know Chris was in the Illuminati. I'm not watching his podcast anymore." Yes, you know people by their actions, folks. You know people by their actions, not by like what they're wearing. Anyway, Jamie, so tell us more, because here's the thing, right? If you put a bunch of youngsters together, in your case boys, in a boarding school, where their role models naturally become whoever the toughest boy is, and that boy's, you know, his parents don't love him enough to have him at home. Let's just be honest.
No,
you know,
that's fair enough.
Their careers were more important.
Yeah.
So that boy's damaged, and he projects that onto the boys in his dormitory, which can be in the form of that type of abuse that we all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, it's as simple as that. Is that there are a fair percentage of, you know, the teachers that I grew up with that are convicted pedophiles. You know, that's they were found. You know, me and my friends that I went to school with, you know, got the letter. You know, the schools are legally obliged to tell you if you were in at school at the same time as the people that are convicted. And we just used to joke, you know, you get the chain emails round from the school, this and this, and you know how it starts. You know, unfortunately, they've been convicted. You know, and get them maybe once every other year, something like that.
Yes.
And it's a shame, you know, it's a real shame that people, you know, just aren't doing anything about it, you know, in you know, trying to cover it up and turn a blind eye. And I think that you know, having been to boarding school and being there from the age of 6 to the age of 18, you know, you kind of and these are with you know, guys that the school that I went to was part of the Eton group, so it's, you know, basically people that are going to be prime ministers or work in banks. You know, every single one of you know, my friends basically went into finance or something along those lines. I was kind of more of the black sheep out of them that I never really, you know, wanted to do that kind of career driven thing. So, you know, I suffered during my 20s because I saw them all kind of going out and, you know, really making a name for themselves and everything like that, and, you know, lauding it about London. Whilst I tried to get into a music career for a little bit. You know, I did a radio show and just kind of jack of all trades, master of none. And but I really saw kind of how people got there. And I don't think it's kind of like a shady kind of society where people kind of collude to do it. I think that it seems a lot more kind of organic than that. You know, people, it's just a slow ratcheting of dependence. You know, people get paid a good wage and then they're kind of input into the political side, you know, to start off with the kind of woke agenda. You know, I saw it when people that were intrinsically just very logically minded went into their first jobs, and then all of a sudden, it's, oh, HR can't do this. Like, HR will get me if I start to, you know, speak my mind about immigration or something like that. Do you know what I mean? You just can't talk about immigration into the country, for instance. I mean, my personal, you know, views on kind of politics in general has changed over time, but you know how it happens. I don't think it's a kind of sign on the dotted line and you kind of sign, immediately change. I just think it's a learnt thing through kind of attrition, and then by the time that they're in the positions of power, they're so kind of programmed to do that they assume that kind of thing that they're guilty of, right? The kind of all seeing, all powerful, almost as if they are colluding. But like, I don't think that they could kind of get away with what they do if they truly knew what they were doing, if that makes sense.
So am I right? See, Jamie, the way I think is there's this notion that your first sexual experience that becomes your thing, like your kink or your vibe, and because you've got these young boys that's their first experience of relationships is with another youngster, that then that gets taken into, and I'm not saying everyone here, folks, obviously I'm not, some people just completely understand that's wrong and as such put measures in place to make sure it don't happen. But I'm saying that when you look at the way that our politicians and all the institutions and the media, the way they're structured, to clearly they're just whatever that bloody word is with them.
Yeah.
Proliferated, is that the word?
Yeah.
And what's happening is it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you've not only got all these people covering up for each other and using secret codes like hot dogs and to get away with it, but also they instantly become blackmailable, don't they? Because
Well, that's right. I think that's I mean, the current news topic, and it's kind of changed a while. I don't know if you've seen it, but that Premier League referee, the guy David Coate.
Can
Did
you
you
just
have
jog
you?
my memory?
It's literally just come out. It's a Premier League referee, and he's come out, and there's a video of him, and he's quite clearly been on the nose candy, and he's kind of saying, look, I think Jurgen Klopp is a C bomb, and he's made some kind of pretty dubious calls in the past kind of season. There's been a couple of really, I'm a Chelsea fan for my for my sins. I'm fully aware that it's kind of bread and circuses, but I just watch it for pure entertainment value and to kind of keep my finger on the pulse, and I just quite enjoy watching sport in general, but with the definite knowledge that the whole thing is a sham basically. But it's really interesting that the guys that's just come out, he's clearly been set up. He's clearly been set up. He's gone on a night out. He's gone for afters at some bloke's house, and God knows why. But he's taken a video of himself and then gone, "Oh, please don't share it." I mean, the whole thing looks a bit too much of a setup. But the fallout of that is we have a Premier League referee who's basically admitting to biasing or being exceptionally biased. Now, that you know referees are always going to have inherent biases, in any game. But when you kind of see it play out like that, it's just you and this is something that my dad is a Chelsea fan. They grew up in in southwest London, and his dad was a Chelsea fan. His dad's dad was actually a QPR fan. I should be a QPR fan, but they're craps. But you, I've watched the game, for a decade or so, properly, and it's so obvious to me that the media and everything like that are essentially picking who is going to win, who they like and who they don't like. And I call it rigging, right? I think that they're rigging the matches. But a lot of people say, oh, it's like WWF or WWE or something like that, that they're kind of making the calls like they're, and I think that it's wrong to kind of accuse things of, people that is definitely not happening. And I don't think that they're kind of sat there with a script and they go, this week Liverpool are going to win 2-1. What I think is a lot more organic, and I think that this is how, quote unquote conspiracy and everything occurs, is that it's very kind of media driven into the psyche of everybody that's involved, just like this referee is quite clearly influenced by what's gone on in his life, and has been biased by all of the kind of information that's around him to basically play his part in this theater. I think that people knowingly doing things are so vanishingly small, because I just don't think it could work like that. I think that you would have to be so, the cracks would just show, I think, in people where if they were that kind of malintention knowingly, I think it would be so difficult to cover up, especially people in the limelight, right? Especially, especially people giving interviews, especially people on camera all the time. You would either have to be so well trained, because in the days that we're in, where everybody has a smartphone, right? And you've just seen this with David Coote, is that everybody has a smartphone. So it's not just standing in front of the camera, it's every time you walk down the street, right?
Yeah, I'll just come in there, Jamie, and say this is why it's called a matrix, isn't it? Is to control the matrix, you don't need to have this huge, what we'd call a structured organization with people being trained in it. All you need to do is control the energy.
Yeah.
And this is what the big club do brilliantly.
Yeah.
They know what people want and what people need are two different things. What people need is to be loved and to sit in the sun with a smile on their face. If you can crack those two things, you don't even need the love if you're completely spiritual. You just need to appreciate what you've got, right? That's it. That's the answer to the universe. That's all you need to get, is all you're going to get. What people want is bread, circuses, alcohol, pornography, cheap holidays, more alcohol, coke, slagging a person off at work. Oh, if I get,
that's right.
If I get to this job position, they're going to give me a Mercedes. And the club, as we refer to them, they know this. They know this, and they're dripping this shit in, and all they got to do is just chuck the drop in the pond, and it ripples outwards through essentially human emotion.
That's right.
And I was last night. I went for I was at a venue thing near where I live. Anyway, I'm stood on the seafront, and it's a beautiful place. And I looked down into the city, and they had a fair going on with all the noise booming and the lights. Remember, Pinocchio went to the fairgrounds and the circuses, and he had to overcome that to become a real person, right?
Yeah.
And I'm stood there, and in that moment, it just becomes so obvious, Jamie. I love going on the waltzers. I love the, roller. Of course, we all love that adrenaline thing, but that's all society strives for, is that false version of reality.
No, that's right. No, I've just had that exact kind of dichotomy because, we were talking off camera. I'll just explain my situation in France. I moved here about 6 years ago. I saw what was happening with that kind of, the Wurlitzers of life, happening in 2016. I saw that there was a kind of that real machination in the UK of, what was UN Agenda 21 kind of creeping in, despite people kind of voting supposedly against kind of globalist politics. I immediately saw that this was all just kind of an allusion to, what happened with Brexit. I mean, basically, all that occurred is that people found out who people like whatever his name was, I can't remember, but Guy Verhofstadt. Nobody knew the name Guy Verhofstadt before 2016, and all that happened with Brexit is that people now knew these twats that were, based in Brussels, milking society. That was the upshot of the entire, supposedly democratic process, is that they became household names, and that was about it, And so I kind of saw what was going on, and I wanted to move away into a little bit of country. I had a small family, and I wanted them to be able to run free in a little bit of land that we had. Just have an acre, have a small holding, a little market garden, some animals, and a little bit of space to kind of move my elbows around. And I came from Kent, in the middle of Kent, which is now just a parking lot. The whole thing, they're building thousands upon thousands upon thousands of houses, of these just basically prefab houses. And I moved out of a Taylor Wimpey house, just where they just stick them up in a couple of years, and immediately moved to this. My wife grew up here. She's British, but has lived most of her life in southwest France, not far from Bordeaux, and just fell in love with the place, and bought a kind of ruin, and I'm doing it up very, very slowly, all by myself. And turning it into an off-grid. It's a small version of a chateau, so it's a maison de maître, and just ever so slowly bringing it back to life, uncovering some of the walls behind the limestone walls, and because the guy that left it, he was in his 80s, and he just. By the time he died in the house, he money was kind of tight, and he was cutting a few corners, and so like rendering the walls and putting concrete up instead of rebuilding it in the way that it was. So have kind of unstitched a lot of that last stuff, and tried to take it back to something a little bit more how it would have been in when it was built in the 16th century. So that's kind of me, the position that I'm in. And going back to what you said, Chris, and that kind of, the realization that there is this whole kind of theater going on is very prescient for me when I return back to the UK. I've recently just come back from seeing my dad back in Kent, and it was Halloween, and we went trick-or-treating, and I took the kids trick-or-treating, and it was really funny. Just there was a new estate, a lot like the Taylor Wimpey estate that I came from, but they're kind of a bit posher houses. What they're trying to do in Kent is they're building like what can be deemed as a detached house, right? So there's a whole estate full of exactly the same houses, and there's a kind of gap between the houses, like about that big, so that they can call them, it's a completely detached house, and they've got the garden in the front, and they've got the kind of the plants, and they've all got the hired cars on the drive. That it's all a German car, it's all a German whip, and they want, we're talking in Kent, it's like £700,000 for a 3-bed detached house. The best part, £750,000, right? And we just went round the estates doing trick or treat. It's lovely. Like, the kids loved it. But you got a real kind of sense, and it was kind of strange that we went down the council estate, and it was funny because the very first bloke that opened his door, top off, tats all the way down, absolutely reeked of weed, and he gave the kids a quid. He was like, I'm not giving you, you know, sweets are crap. Here's a quid. And my son was like, that's awesome. I love money. And, you know, they seem genuinely, you know, just happy and comfortable. And then you go to this estate and it's the same people. They're the same people in this new built estate with the German cars on the front lawn, in the front drive, in these, you know, new built houses, which look, you know, they have the face of, you know, being very smart and everything like that. But it's just, it's like, you know, kind of American houses. It's just plasterboard and, you know, some kind of nice render on the front, and they put and they've quite clearly sold themselves very high. You know, the amount of debt they must be in to afford a £750,000 house with the lease car on the front lawn. And to me, it was just so obvious that they were just taking on that WEF thing, you know, the World Economic Forum of you will own nothing and be happy. It's just they didn't look happy. They looked like they were keeping up with the Joneses. It was like and I had a discussion with a friend of mine when I came back. It's like people kind of doing everything for like the Facebook or the Instagram thing. Like they will get themselves into all of this huge amount of debt right up to the neck just so that they can have that Instagram post or the Facebook post. Here, I'm on holiday in thing. It's cost me, you know, £1,000 to be chucked in a cattle class, you know, a tiny little box, you know, flew to the same place that your next door neighbor was going anyway, to sit in a, you know, in a hotel which isn't as nice as your own front room, just so that you can kind of go, I'm enjoying myself on holiday. And it's like, once you kind of just leave that, it becomes so, it's so kind of obvious. It just becomes so funny and so, you know, and it's freeing as well, because you kind of just I feel genuine, you know, pity for those types of people that, you know, I I just wanted to tell them, you know, you're knocking on the door of these people's houses. It's like, this house cost me 138,000 euros. That's about 110 grand. Like you couldn't buy a garage in Kent for that. I'm debt free. I have no debt. I have no debt to anybody. I bought it outright. I sold my house in Canterbury. That's it. And I bought it. Easy. I don't owe anybody anything. And it's just, you know, people, I mean, obviously it's a situational thing, and, you know, it's difficult for people to just uproot and everything like that. But I think slowly but surely people are waking up. You know, I think 2020 was actually a blessing in disguise. I think that it woke me up to the health thing. You know, like I had absolutely no idea. I was, you know, terrible in my health and my diet and everything like that. And so I thank my lucky stars for the fact that I just got shown the information, you know, and I found some of the information, and I saw that to kind of be able to make, you know, better decisions for my health and for my family and moving forward. And I think it's really important, right, that you just find out this information. There are so many good people like yourselves putting that information out, you know, for people to make their own decisions and whatever works for them best.
It's not for everybody. I'll say that, and it shouldn't be. You know, this is esoteric knowledge. It's an exclusive club. As much as they've got their friggin' Illuminati and their Masons, and, you know, I don't mean the regular, I mean the high up 33 and plus, and the Hollywood Masonry. You know, there's a better club you can join. It's called the Universe Club, the Spiritual Club, or whatever. But it's so hard for the regular Joe who believes he's awake because he understands, that the narrative of the last 4 years was a bit if, or it may have been that they're old as me and they remember those events in New York and Washington 20 years ago. But so lost, these individuals, so lost, They have the inability to see that the club, through a certain little country in the Middle East, now have got the presidency of the United States, right? You've got the president's best mate, Elon. He literally put out this tweet. I saw it today. I'll just take a second. I'll try and get it up on the screen. This just, if you don't get it, folks, by watching this, you're not gonna get it. You're not gonna get it. This is, look, Elon's tweet is, Douglas Murray is an excellent writer. This is the guy that the so-called awake people want to have in their presidency, the president's right-hand boy, okay? Douglas Murray's book is On Democracies and Death Cults, Israel, Hamas, and the Future of the West. Right? Now, when you go on Amazon and read the bump, he's not referring to Israel as being the death cult. No. He's talking about the Palestinians, right? He's talking about the Palestinians.
Yeah,
who've done nothing to no one.
It's inversionism, isn't it? It's inversionism, and everything is on its head. And a lot of people also make the mistake of getting wound up by that inversionism. The only thing that you can do with that is laugh, because I've seen a lot of people, and I'm guilty of it too, especially when we were right in the middle of 2020, is going, I hate that polar opposite. And the thing that, I think I did a bit of marketing. I worked as a marketer for about 8 years, and it's a very easy job when you have access to large platforms, because marketing, the saying goes, is just as long as they're talking about you, that's it. That's all you need. And so, newspapers and the media and everything like that cover both angles by doing the reverse. If you say the opposite of what you're doing and you wind people up, even if they're going against you, you're still engaging an audience, right? And you're engaging an audience on that kind of, anger vibration of, like, they want you to engage on those types of things because it takes your energy, it takes your spirituality, and more importantly, you're just directly engaging with those stories. And I think, that kind of cover of both sides is where they kind of operate best, kind of spreading their message out. And so I think it's kind of incumbent just to laugh, right? Just to notice it and go, that's funny shit, man.
Absolutely. This so-called truth community, God, as soon as it doesn't suit them, God, how nasty do they become?
No, that's right. How
nasty, And that's not spiritual, folks. That's not the, that's not the answer to the universe. Is if someone upsets you or offends you, just ignore them. You don't rise to it.
That's right.
You don't need to go on their Facebook or their whatever and tell you. It's a bitter energy exchange. So, yes. So the climate thing we mentioned. This is interesting, right? And again, this is where I think it's good to keep your jury out. The reason I'm saying that is I had Dane Wigington on the show. He's like the world's lead forerunning expert on geoengineering.
Okay, Interesting.
Yes, doesn't mean he's right,
Hmm.
but that's his position. I start off by saying he's a lovely guy. You know, you can see the strain in his face that he's tried to get this, you know, the geoengineering that we see every day. Even if you think that's condensation, fine, that's your right, but you still have to admit it blocks the sun out every single day,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you have this little trail in the morning, and by the afternoon, it's this shit show that's spread across the whole sky
Yeah.
with these bizarre cloud patterns that you just never saw as children.
No, that's right.
These mackerel skies, they call them. So,
Yeah.
you know, regardless of what your thoughts are, it's geoengineering. Whether it's the BBC have just come out and they're gaslighting. That's what the BBC do best. They're gaslighters, you know. And they've just come out and said, "Oh, the government are now going to take measures to address the condensation coming out of planes." Right?
That's right.
You know, they're putting the seed in the public's mind that yes, it is a problem, but it's still only condensation as opposed to salt crystals, which are you know, sucking the moisture out of the sky. So
The whole point is that, you know, when addressing these, you know, issues is that, you know, people want to seed a narrative of extremity to try and distract away from what's occurring. You know, people want to, and this goes back to what I was saying before, is that if you accuse people of things that they're not doing, then it can kind of water down the message of what they are doing. And so, you know, I think, and I can speak from knowledge about the climate issue, you know, going from ground up, because the only thing that I am accredited in is geology. I have a degree in geology, and part of that was paleoclimates. And I went to university at the University of Durham, which is a pretty good university up north, and they have a good earth sciences department. I was a bit of a it was like a drinking man's degree for me. I got an unconditional offer, so I was going into it with you know, a good knowledge, and getting an unconditional offer is quite, you know, difficult, especially in some of these kind of more high profile universities. But I did a degree in geology. I saw the paleoclimate data. In fact, in my last year, we got given an assignment to put together Lake Vostok data, which is the most accurate, supposedly, paleoclimate data that there is. And this was in 2001, 2002. And it's oxygen isotopes. So very quickly, the oxygen that's trapped in ice cores, they have heavy and light oxygen 16 and oxygen 18, and they do mass spectrometry on these ice cores. And supposedly, when there's a different ratios of lighter to heavier oxygens, that tells you, because obviously when it evaporates off the lighter isotopes, so that you have heavier isotopes. So this is meant to be the most accurate climate data available. And we got told as undergrads in the last year to map out this climate data. Unfortunately for them, they also had in their data reel CO2. So they could study CO2, and we weren't meant to do this, but you could, because the data was available, is put CO2 next to the temperature data that they had. And when you put them next to the data, you see that there's a lag of 600 years. It's about four to 600 years, and the peaks are exactly the same, the peaks and troughs, and you can tell by their own data that CO2 is not a driver of climate. It's as simple as that. Like, nobody disagrees with that. Like, I went to the lecturers and went, you know, have you seen that? And within the geological, you know, realms, it's just kind of, it's tongue in cheek to say anything about anthropogenic climate change, because it's just nonsense. It's a political vehicle. So as a 20-year-old, I knew that the climate scam was a scam. It's a complete fraud. There is no data available that shows that there is global warming. I mean, obviously, as a layman, you can tell that, obviously, but I'm telling you that the data itself that is available to all geologists and paleoclimatologists is categorical that there's no such thing. So, you know, I came into 2020 knowing very much that the UN and World Health Organization, the UN, because they run the IPCC, the International Panel for Climate Change, that they are totally capable of running worldwide hoaxes because they claim that there is climate change, which is completely in contravention to the data available. Now, going on to spraying and chemical spraying and things like that, you know, there's rafts of peer-reviewed literature which categorically say that, you know, you can cloud seed, and it's called cloud seeding, where you go out and you put particulate matter into the air and it operates as nuclei, which is how clouds form. I mean, this is GCSE level geography. Not only do they admit to doing it, you can buy packages to cloud seed to make sure that the air is free of moisture in a localized environment for weddings. They offer this as services. You know, American crop farmers are doing it all the time. If they're big enough, cloud seed around an area to make sure that you get rainfall. So the idea that you can do it is not debatable. The problem that people fall into is the kind of running away with it, that you then start to blame kind of, oh, all the airlines are in on it and they're doing it on purpose here and here. And I think when you start to kind of make those accusations, you've got to be very sure that those accusations have any kind of evidence to back them up, because if it turns out that they're not guilty, then they can go, oh, we're not doing it at all. And more importantly, it's very obvious that just the fact of going in an engine and going up into the sky, you are giving you whatever they put in the fuel, you know, presumably antifreeze and stuff like that, you know, in the lines, in whatever, any chemical that goes into a plane that's in the sky that's burning fuel is putting a particulate matter into the air, you know. And the problem is that people kind of go, you know, oh, they must have like little jets on the wings, and then there's a button in the cockpit, and they turn it on when they're, you know, when they're above Plymouth, and they're gridding it on purpose. And I think that unless you're kind of careful of accusing them of the right thing, I think that you can kind of get bogged down in that. If you start from the very kind of, we know that if stuff is sprayed into the air, whatever particle it is, it forms a nuclei which a cloud can form around. That's basic, undebatable science. Planes do emit chemicals of some sort because that they're burning it in their engines, right? And it's coming out the back. So however you want, even if you say increase in air travel is poisoning our skies, you can't, it's undebatable.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sort of totally with you on this, but also sort of like on the fence, as I think all observers, you know, should be. What I've said all along, look, let's just not call it a conspiracy. Let's just ask what is happening to the sky that didn't happen 20 years ago. You know,
that's right.
And it was about 20 years ago. I think Prince came out and started mentioned it. You know, when we were kids, we didn't have this. So therefore, could someone just give us an explanation? Just an explanation. Right. Don't just say condos, because that doesn't cut the mustard, because this didn't happen as children.
No, that's right.
But what I would say is, you know, I also too, you know, don't believe that there's pilots up there going, right, Sid, push the button now. We're over Exeter, fucking Devonian bastards. Yes, you know, but also could be something as simple as if you were to somehow, and don't, I'm not a chemist obviously, but put sodium in the avgas, the
That's
aviation
right.
fuel, you're going to get this effect because sodium.
That's right. I think that that's more it, that you know, it's just the stuff that they're knowingly putting
And can
in
I
the environment,
just,
right?
while it's on my mind, because I'm an old person that forgets things now, Jamie, it's not as though we haven't just been through like 4 years of people trying to put stuff where they shouldn't put it, and they
That's right.
bloody got away with it. They've still got away with it.
That's
They
right.
won't get
That's
away
right.
with it in the end, but up
No,
until now, there's, their bile system is still upholding that narrative. So it's not
that's
as
right.
though, and also the stuff that, let's just say, the stuff they introduce into babies and
That's
children,
right. That's
right?
right.
They get away with that. Oh,
Yeah.
when you understand it, you'll know how evil. It's evil personified.
That's right. No, I mean,
Personified.
this is the thing that we're doing. You know, largely the project that I'm running with in terms of health, and it's very simple. They kind of have to tell you. You just have to open your eyes and look, and whether it's spraying things in the environment, or and I haven't looked heavily into aviation, or the types of things that they're putting as admixtures into fuel, or any of the types of processes that go onto it. I've kind of focused more on kind of um, the food and agriculture, um, toxins, vitamins, and pharmaceutical products. And so all you have to do is kind of peel away, and things like glyphosate or whatever. It's a heavy agricultural community around here, and so it's vineyards as well. It's wine country, and there's a huge vineyard at the bottom of the bottom of my land here. It's a couple of hectares away, but still close enough that I kind of worry. And they spray their crops, their vines, during the season, probably once every fortnight. Come around with a huge thing on the back, and just sprays it into the air, on the back of a tractor. And I take the kids inside. I'm like, just whilst they're going around, because it gets into the environment. When all you have to do is look at any of the things that they're spraying, and it's like arsenic based, it's like lead based. All of these things have never changed. They, from the time when they were poisoning the environment in the Industrial Revolution. The chemicals probably have even got worse. They just kind of cover them up, and all you have to do is scratch away at that surface. One of the things that I can tell you about vitamins and things like that, about pharmaceutical products, because there's two sides to this thing that I've noticed with what I'm doing with my project is that there's the very obvious side, which is you shouldn't take the thing that we're talking about to do with 2020. But there's also this huge counterculture of taking drugs, and they're knowingly taking drugs, but are meant to be not big pharma's drugs. And I don't know if I can say it on here, probably because it's that little known. But vitamin D, okay, the vitamins are made by big pharma. Okay, they are the results. They claim, for instance, vitamin D, that it comes from the sunshine, and they put it in pill format, right? Well, vitamin D is a chemical called cholecalciferol. They make it in a lab. It's not from sunshine. They just completely synthesize it out of a bunch of chemicals. A lot of those chemicals are industrial waste products, right? And I know this from experience, because I took vitamin D tablets and ended up getting heart palpitations. I thought I was having a heart attack. I got my wife up in the middle of the night, about 3 a.m, and was like, my heart's jumping out my chest. And we were like, she said, what's going on? Have you taken anything? Are you feeling all right? Are you overstressed or anything like that? I said, no, I haven't taken anything. And she was like, what about those vitamin D tablets? Anyway, looked at the back of the packet. Okay, it's vitamin D. I didn't know. It took me about like 3 or 4 hours to calm my heart rate down. It was really racing. And just quick Google, vitamin D toxicity can cause heart palpitations. Okay, that's a bit weird. Calcifies your blood. Do a little bit of research. Cholecalciferol is the active ingredient in rat poison. And not only is it the active ingredient, we're talking in micrograms. It's not like you have to have a fistful of this stuff. On the back of rat poison, it will say that 11 milligrams, which is in like a block of rat poison, is enough to kill a dog. And people are kind of taking these alternative products, and I'll say it as well, the dewormers and stuff like that, as because they're not the thing that the government are initially putting, but they're all made by big pharma. Every single one of these products is a drug. Every single one of them, when you look at the data safety sheets, will tell you that they are poisonous toxins, not to be swallowed, are harmful and dangerous to your life, because they have to tell you that legally. And so a lot of what I do in the project is just showing people about their health, that basically nothing in pill format can be good for you. What is good for you? And we talk about this before this interview, it's just going for a run, being out in the sun. You don't need a pill. People have survived for however long we've been on this planet for without synthetic vitamin D. People say in the UK as well, oh, but during the winter, I don't get my quite sun allowance. Well, what happened to people 200 years ago? They were perfectly fine.
Jamie, on that note, I'm just conscious of the time here. If we try and keep the podcast short these days, because more people will watch them then. Although I do appreciate, friends, that it does upset some people. They get into a chat like this and they're like, oh, but it just means that Jamie and I will have to have another chat, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
What we'll do, we'll put your links in the description below. I'm a bit hesitant to talk about your project because it relates to that which we're going over to locals now to talk about, does it not?
Yeah.
So we'll put your Twitter link below.
Great, thank you.
People can get hold of you. But yes, absolutely fascinating chat. I think it's great to be asking these questions. I was just flashing something up there, just on a closing point. Sodium is present in aviation fuel in a few forms. Sodium percarbonate, sodium carbonate, and sodium salts of acidic species. Well, I mean, I'm no scientist. I'm actually a catwalk model, but I'm no scientist. But even I know sodium is what they use for the cloud seeding.
That's right.
And it couldn't that be an easy and I'm not trying to justify what's going on in this guy. I hate it. I'll be interested when I row the Atlantic next week. Hello, folks. Just a quick thank you to everyone. You can see our fundraising's flying up. Look, we've had a load, £200 of donations.
Oh, fantastic.
Overnight to support struggling veterans.
Fantastic.
And bereaved service kids. Not their fault their parents commit suicide, folks. They don't decide about the military industrial complex. Poor little sods, So thanks to everyone that's chipped in a $5. I'll put a link below this video. But it'll be interesting, won't it, when we're mid-Atlantic to see what's going on with the sky there.
That's it. No, it's a fantastic thing that you're doing, Chris. I mean, that sounds incredible. That sounds absolutely incredible. And I that's it, isn't it? Is to just kind of, look with your own eyes and just see and just compare. A lot of the stuff that I'm doing in my project is just, you know, trying things at home. I've got a box sat in front of me. I bought a PCR machine. I'm just trying it myself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Brilliant. Right, Jamie, let's go over to locals and we'll have that.
Awesome.
Friends, we're going to locals for the most important chat you are ever going to hear if you're not familiar with this, with well-being. I'm just calling it well-being. You know what I'm talking about. So if you can like and subscribe, folks, that would be absolutely brilliant. And cheers to everyone that supported us on Patreon, locals, or become a YouTube member. On YouTube membership, folks, there's all my back catalogue, all my life coaching videos, all my sports stuff, everything. Right, Jamie, thanks again. Massive love to everyone out there.
Chris.
Please like and subscribe. And we'll see you on locals. There'll be a link below in the description for the locals video. Ciao, ciao.
I've been living